Board meeting is in session. John Deal, House Majority Leader, is via Skype, via his office in Jefferson City. Tony Messenger is the editorial page editor of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and attorney and former chief of staff to Governor Holden, Jane Duker, is here. Jane, you want to talk about Tesla?
Yeah, I do. I'm more fascinated by the sort of the procedure that sort of happened and how, that people put, drop language in at the end of session that nobody's talked about.
So this bill would force Tesla to sell cars or have everyone sell cars through a franchise, and Tesla sells cars directly. So this bill, if passed and signed, would then force Tesla into a business practice that isn't part of their model.
Right. Well, and so you say. That's what raises the point for me, is that we really don't know, because this was never debated in a committee. It was never discussed. It was never, both sides didn't get to have their piece because, you drop a big, bomb and you amend it on a bill. And it happens all the time. And I was glad, frankly, as much as we disagreed, I was glad that the House stopped it and said, look, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but to dump it in at the end there, I think it's a bad practice. I think we need to focus more on getting things through committee. That's why you have them. That's why you have the process. Let's debate it. That's a big enough issue when you're trying to shut down a company. I mean, we want to be innovators in Missouri. We want to be, and if that's the allegation, then it's something that should go through the process, and it shouldn't have been dropped in.
John Deal, what are your thoughts on that Tesla story?
Oh, sure. I mean, obviously, there are thousands of bills filed and another couple thousand amendments, and there's a process, for a reason. So over on the Senate side, when a bill came up, a senator offered an amendment dealing with that situation. It came back over to the House. It came to my attention, to my calendar, and we put a stop to it because I don't think people had enough information about it. I really don't like the last couple days of session for that very reason, because there tends to be a tendency to try to get things into bills that haven't been fully vetted. One of the things we've done over the past couple of years is really put in place procedures. You can never completely eliminate it, but to stop it. I know, back a decade ago, you used to be able, on the last day of session, put a 300-page substitute on top of a bill and vote on it in 10 or 15 minutes. Well, we put a stop to all of that. So all of our bills and amendments are all required to be distributed with advance notice before we can consider them and do that. That's not necessarily so on the Senate side, but in the House, that's a practice that we follow. For example, on committee reports, the big reports that resolve bills have to be done today. So there's at least 24 hours before we can consider them tomorrow that everybody can read and make sure there's nothing snuck into them, like toxicology or things that have happened in the past, or stuff like this. So no, that bothered me. I didn't think it was properly vetted, and the terrible, horrible Missouri House put a stop to it.
Well, but what we forgot. Well, wait, real quick though. What we forgot. It was put into the bill by a car dealer, by Senator Kehoe, right? And he is a car dealer, and that's why
it was put in by Senator Wasson.
Oh, it was,
at Mike
Kehoe's request.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we yield.
I don't know.
We yield for a comment to Tony Messenger.
I want to commend the acting speaker, John Deal, and let's face it. He won't admit it, but he's been the acting speaker since Tim Jones checked out earlier this session to run for radio talk show host. But so it's because John Deal remembered that he has this power on this issue that it's not going to go forward, and good for him. What should happen here is that...
Did that hurt?
That hurt a little bit, John.
He's shaking.
I do appreciate that you realize that you have certain powers.
Well, I like to feel your pain sometimes.
So,
okay.
the thing is, I don't know what the ultimate solution is, but this issue probably should be debated. The auto dealers may have a point in terms of how the rules should be adjusted to some degree. It's a little bit similar to the Lyft and Uber situation in St. Louis, with the exception of the fact that in this case, Tesla
went to the government,
went to the state, went to the Department of Revenue, asked them if they were legal. Department of Revenue said yes, gave them a business license. They did all the right things. And so to try to pass this at the end of the session secretly like this was really a bad idea. Somebody should, if the auto dealers want to do this, they should file a bill next year, and there should be hearings, and there should be a debate, and Tesla should they're obviously on notice now, and let the legislature debate it.
Yeah, what's really interesting is when this popped up, I called a meeting in my office with just the two business principals of the auto dealers and Tesla, got all the lobbyists out of the room. And in about half an hour, they were able to come to a framework. What I told them is like, you guys either have to make a business decision that makes sense for the industry, or you're going to have other people make decisions for you that affect your industry. And if I were you, I'd want to control my own destiny. And within about a half an hour, they were able, I think, to come to an agreement on about 90% of the issues that they're continuing to work through. But there are legitimate issues on both sides. And I'll say this about the Department of Revenue, and this is something which has been problematic about this administration, is that both sides have been trying to get information on what their stance was since January, and they slow-played it until the end of April. And so, there's an issue there too. So, it would have been helpful if the Department of Revenue had been a little more forthcoming in what their thoughts were on this, and we probably could have headed it off a little bit earlier.
That's John Deal, House Majority Leader, Tony Messenger for the editorial page editor of the Post-Dispatch, and Jane Duker. The board meeting continues here on the Big 550 KTR.